Show, America's Top 10. With Casey Kasem, you'll see Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder. Denise Williams.
Yes, it's gonna take a miracle.
Alabama. Our update on the soul duo of Sam and Dave. Plus, exclusive reviews of the top 10 on Billboard's pop, soul, country, and album charts for the week ending May 2nd, 1982. Now, here's Casey Kasem.
Thank you, Charlie. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to America's Top 10. Let's turn right to the action on the Billboard Pop Singles Chart and check out the 10 biggest hits this week. Leaping in from number 20 to number 10, the first top 10 hit for a woman born in Hollywood and currently living in London, Charlene with I've Never Been to Me. Holding at number 9 for a second week, the second hit off Paul Davis's album, Cool Night, It's 65 Love Affair. Up 2 notches to number 8, the song we saw in our Pop Spotlight last week, the band Tommy Two-Tone and 867-5309, Jenny. At number 7, vocalist and harmonica player Huey Lewis with his 5-man band The News, asking a musical question, do you believe in love? Falling to number 6 after 3 weeks at number 2, not making the number 1 spot, the Go-Go's and We Got the Beat. At number 5 is a man who was absent from the record charts for 9 years before coming back last year, Rick Springfield, and he come back. His current hit, Don't Talk to Strangers. This week, the Boston-based Jay Giles Band holds at number 4 for a 4th week with Freeze Frame. After taking a big jump last week from 21 to number 6, Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder continue their momentum, moving up 3 in the top 10 to number 3 with Ebony and Ivory. Up a notch to number 2 is composer and synthesizer player Vangelis with the title music from the movie Chariots of Fire. And holding at number 1 for a 7th consecutive week with their very first hit, and that's the longest any newcomer has spent at the top since Debbie Boone held on for 10 weeks back in 1977 with You Light Up My Life. 7 weeks at number 1 for Joan Jett and the Blackhearts with the most popular song in the land, I Love Rock and Roll. Now, our Pop Spotlight Song of the Week. It's a duet by 2 men who have never recorded together before. 2 men who have hit number 1 a combined total of 33 times. Now, one of those men has hit number 1 on the pop chart 6 times. Each of those times is a solo performer. The other has hit number 1 20 times as a member of the Beatles and 7 more times after the Beatles. A few months ago, this pair of superstars got together at producer George Martin's studio on the Caribbean island of Montserrat, where they recorded a song that had been written by the former Beatle. The song rocketed into the top 10, and this week, it's in our Pop Spotlight. Here are Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder together for the first time, Ebony and Ivory.
Ebony and Ivory live together in perfect harmony, side by side on my piano keyboard. Oh Lord, why don't we? We all know that people are the same wherever you go. There is good and bad in everyone. And we learn to live, we learn to give each other what we need to survive. Together alive, Ebony and Ivory live together in perfect harmony, side by side on my piano keyboard. Oh Lord, why don't we?
Pop Spotlight, superstars Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder with Ebony and Ivory. Up next in our Country Spotlight, an act named for the Cotton State, with their 19th top 10 hit, and the song is You Never Gave Up on Me. Coming in one notch higher at number 3 this week, 49-year-old Willie Nelson with a song that's a big hit on both the country and the pop charts, Always on My Mind. Now, the number 1 song on the country chart this week is in our Country Spotlight. It's by one of only 2 acts to hit the country chart named for states of the Union. One was a solo artist, the man named for the volunteer state. He was both a country and a pop star, and one of his songs hit number 1 on both charts, the song 16 Tons. His name, of course, Tennessee Ernie Ford. Now, the other act is named after the Cotton State. It's an act that's hit number 1 6 times on the country chart, and the latest of those number 1s is in our Country Spotlight this week, with the most popular country song in America, Alabama, and mountain music. Alabama in our Country Spotlight with the number 1 country song in the land, mountain music. Well, now it's time for my update on the career of one of the hottest soul acts to ever emerge from Memphis, the duo of Sam and Dave. You know, during their heyday in the late 60s, Sam and Dave were known as Double Dynamite. And along with Isaac Hayes, Otis Redding, and Booker T and the MGs, Sam and Dave were a cornerstone of the legendary Memphis sound. In the mid-60s, Dave Prater was working as a short-order cook and baker's assistant when he dropped by a Miami nightclub called the King of Hearts. That night, an aspiring young singer named Sam Moore was working as the opening act. Dave got so caught up in the excitement of his performance that he joined Sam on stage. And the duo of Sam and Dave were born. Together, they hit the soul and pop charts 13 times with great songs like Hold On, I'm Coming, I Thank You, and this number 2 song from 1967. It's Soul Man, and here's a rare performance clip.
Coming to you on a dust road. Good loving, I got a trouble on you. And when you get it, you got something. So don't worry, 'cause I'm coming. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man.
From 1967, Sam and Dave was Soul Man, one of the many hits written and produced for him by Isaac Hayes. But by the late 60s, Isaac was spending most of his time working on his solo career. And without his attention, Sam and Dave decided to split up. Sam got a job as a law clerk in Texas, while Dave customized cars in New Jersey. Then, in 1978, Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, performing on Saturday Night Live as the Blues Brothers, revived Sam and Dave's hit Soul Man. And suddenly, they were getting offers to work together again. Sam and Dave toured with Sha Na Na. They appeared in Paul Simon's movie One Trick Pony. And their last appearance together was New Year's Eve of last year at a club in San Francisco, after which Sam and Dave broke up again. These days, they're both pursuing solo careers. In fact, Sam Moore made his solo debut just a couple of weeks ago at New York's Lone Star Cafe. And there you have my update on the careers of those 2 soul men who were part of the great Memphis sound, Sam and Dave. Coming up next in our Soul Spotlight, a hit by a woman whose first job was singing for Stevie Wonder, whose first album was produced by the great Maurice White, and whose first number 1 hit was a duet with Johnny Mathis. Let's turn to the Billboard Soul Chart and see which soul songs you're buying and DJs are playing the most of this week. Debuting at number 9 with their 4th top 10 soul hit, 2 men and a woman who began as dancers on Soul Train, Shalimar with A Night to Remember. And debuting at number 8, a lady who had a hit song last year, and it was the year before, in 1980, a song that went top 10 called Haven't You Heard? She's from L.A., her name is Patrice Rushen, and her current hit is Forget Me Nots. And holding at number 1 for a second week, the man from San Francisco with a winning smile, Richard Dimples Fields, with the most popular soul song in the land. If it ain't one thing, it's another.
If it ain't one thing, it's another.
Now, our Soul Spotlight song of the week. It's by a woman who's been lucky enough in her career to work consistently with musical giants. Soon after moving to Hollywood from her hometown of Gary, Indiana, Denise Williams auditioned for and got a job as a member of Stevie Wonder's backup group, Wonder Love. She sang behind Stevie from 1972 to 1975. Then she got an idea. She sent an audition tape to Earth, Wind & Fire's Maurice White, and he was so impressed with her voice, he produced her debut album, This Is Niecy. And in 1978, she recorded a duet with Johnny Mathis called Too Much, Too Little, Too Late. You got it. It went to #1. This week, Denise Williams is in our Soul Spotlight with a song produced for her by another music business legend, producer Tom Bell. Here's It's Gonna Take a Miracle. Denise Williams in our Soul Spotlight with It's Gonna Take a Miracle. Now it's time for our trivia question. A viewer in New York State wants to know who was the first American recording act to chart with a remake of a Beatles song. Well, believe it or not, the act who did that charted with a remake more than 6 months before the Beatles ever hit here in America. Sounds impossible? Details coming up. Trivia answer in a moment. Giorgio Moroder has composed movie scores for Midnight Express, American Gigolo, and Cat People, but he's never performed any of those scores in public. Moroder recently purchased the rights to a 1927 German film called Metropolis. It's about the future. And Moroder says that when he takes that classic film on a limited tour next year, he'll be performing the movie's all-new soundtrack on stage on a synthesizer. Should be very interesting, a 55-year-old film. Now, let's answer our trivia question. Comes from John Savino of Horseheads, New York, who watches the show on Channel 5 in New York City. John wants to know who was the first American recording act to chart with a remake of a Beatles song. Well, believe it or not, the act who did that charted with a remake more than 6 months before the Beatles ever hit here in America. Now, let me explain. The Beatles began charting in England in October of '62. And even though the Beatles didn't hit here in the USA until January of '64, American acts began covering their English hits during '63. And the first of those to chart was a remake of From Me to You, which hit number 77 on the Billboard chart in June of 1963. Listen, this is what it sounded like.
If there's anything that you want, if there's anything I can do, just call on me and I'll send it along with love from me to you.
The act who remade that Beatles song more than 6 months before the beginning of the British invasion was a singer from Grand Rapids, Michigan, Del Shannon. And that's my complicated answer to a seemingly simple question. Del Shannon was the first American to chart with a remake of a Beatles song, the song From Me to You. And there's your answer, John. Thanks for writing in.
And because America's Top 10 used John's question, he'll receive TDK audio cassettes for rich, clean sound, TDK video cassettes for bright colors and sharp images. TDK leads the way in home recording tape. And if you want beautiful hair, use Salon Formula Jerry Redding Milk and Honey Shampoo. Jerry Redding, from the salon to you. And from Akai for great sound, beautifully styled match components, including AM/FM stereo receiver, set of match speakers, and stereo cassette deck. Remember Akai, you never heard it so good.
Well, that wraps up our show for this week. Now be sure to join us next week when we'll celebrate the 2nd anniversary of America's Top 10 by taking a very special look at our first show, the one from the week ending May 10th, 1980. We'll update the acts who were on that show, and I think you'll be surprised by how things have changed around here. Till then, keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars.